Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ruckus podcast in combination of 102.9 tape deck. This is your boy Cuban Mike, and today I am doing something special for y'all. I have an artist here, Cuban artist. He's one of the top rap lyricists out of Cuba. He bring awareness to the community. He tried to tell y'all what's going on, everything regarding politics, the political oppression that's going on there, and everything involving like anti-racism, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to give it to you in English and Spanish. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to my other guest here I got tonight, Marlene. I want to thank her for making this possible. She's going to help me translate with this artist. So you're going to hear a lot of back and forth, English, Spanish, Spanglish. But if you know me, you know how I already do here. So, damas y caballeros, bienvenidos al podcast Ruckus en combinación with 102.9 tape deck. I'm your boy Cuban Mike y hoy tengo una entrevista mortal. Él es uno de los mejores raperos en la música urbana cubana. Los mensajes que él trae es muy poderoso, con mucha conciencia del rap, y él habla muchas cosas de política, cosas de racista y etcétera, etcétera. Le va a gustar esta entrevista. Ladies and gentlemen, acá Raudel Escuadron. ¿Cómo estás, brother?
Todo bien, Dios mediante.
¿Todo bien?
Gracias a ti, a tu familia y a tu audiencia, brother, por la invitación.
Gracias por aceptar mi invitación. Gracias. Marlene, sweetie, are you ready?
Yes, ready if your guys are ready.
All right.
Thank you for inviting me here.
No, thank you. You're the reason why this is all happening. You're like the mysterious. I told you, it's gonna be like Inspector Gadget. You're gonna be the person with the voice. We don't see what you look like. It's mysterious. I love it.
I'll come out another time.
Perfect.
A bad hair day.
No, hey, look, I mean, I don't get it because I don't have any hair, but for women, I know that's a struggle to y'all. So.
Es un día para que Raudel entiende bastantes cosas, pero para mejor. Pero es un día malo de lluvia aquí y está el ambiente muy húmedo en Miami.
All right. So can you ask can I get a brief introduction on himself and his come up living in Cuba?
Okay. Raudel, hola, buenas noches. Y
Vale.
dice Michael que si puedes hacer una breve presentación, ¿no? Introducción de ti y de lo que tú hacías en Cuba.
Ok. Mi nombre es Raudel Escuadron. Soy cubano. Soy hijo de educadores, de maestros. Me dedico a hacer música hip hop cubano. Soy psicólogo de profesión porque en realidad fue lo que estudié hasta que me dediqué completamente a la música.
Okay. Déjame, si no te importa, déjame traducir porque es un poquito. Entonces, he's saying, my name is, good evening, my name is Raudel Escuadron, and basically he's a hip hop artist, and he's been doing that in Cuba. He is a psychologist, by studies. He has his degrees in psychology. Eso es más o menos, ¿no? ¿Algo más?
Ok. Decía que me dedico actualmente a la música hip hop, a hacer música hip hop. Mi experiencia en la música hip hop nace al calor de la realidad y de la experiencia de vivir en Cuba.
Okay. So he's saying, va muy poquito a poquito. He's saying that he dedicates himself, his profession is hip hop. And basically the theme of it is about, the reality in Cuba of how his music is.
Una experiencia, esta experiencia de Cuba.
This experience of Cuba.
Tan fuerte, tan complicada, tan dura y tan triste para los cubanos.
It's a very strong and tough, experience or reality for Cubans.
Y la vivencia de esa experiencia me acercó a la música hip hop.
And having experienced that in Cuba, that hard reality, got me to experiencing to go into hip hop, to the music.
Nice. Okay. You see, Marlene, you got the gist. You got this, Marlene. You got me. You're gonna get nervous.
I got it. Yeah, it's just like the long sentences are maybe better than the short ones.
Let me. All right. At what age you started to rap? What age you
¿A qué
started? Like,
hora empezaste a hacer rap, Raudel?
Bueno, yo comienzo por el año 2003.
I began around 2003.
Un poco antes de comenzar ya a ser un MC, a empezar a cantar y a transmitir los mensajes de hip hop, yo primero era público, yo iba a disfrutar de ese fenómeno que era el rap en Cuba. Un poco antes.
He says that before he was, before he got into the hip hop movement, which was, you know, he says around 2003, but a little bit before that, he already started going into that movement. So he would visit places, you know, that had that hip hop audience. Okay, he started, you know, getting into it.
all right. And who were his hip hop influence as he was coming up?
Ok. Primero, la experiencia que casi todos los que vivimos este lado del hemisferio tenemos es el hip hop en USA y el hip hop en los Estados Unidos.
So he's saying that you know, in reference to who are the people that, you know, basically have influenced or that they have as a reference in the Cuban hip hop are the hip hop artists here in the USA, you know, in USA.
¿Y cuáles son los artistas hip hop americanos que te influyeron para hacer hip hop?
Bueno.
Which artists influenced you to do hip hop?
Nosotros comenzamos, en Cuba se comienza a escuchar las bandas que por los años 80, años finales de los 80, principios de los 90, fundamentalmente la década de los 90 estaban por acá. Pero habían bandas muy puntuales que influenciaron al movimiento de rap cubano. Run DMC.
Okay, one second, Raul. Okay, so he's saying that basically the bands, you know, of the 90s that, you know, that influenced them, there were several of them, but si me puedes repetir otra vez, Raul,
que una que hubieron bandas muy puntuales que influenciaron a lo que fue el movimiento de rap cubano en algún momento.
Yeah, there were many bands that were very influential to what was the Cuban rap at one time, and he's naming them now.
Run DMC,
Public Enemy. Ok. Esos fueron bandas que nosotros empezamos a oír.
Those were some of the bands that they started listening to.
Y que la propuesta, de alguna manera, la comienzan a asumir, no yo, que soy de otra generación de rap, sino los primeros raperos on the ground dentro de la isla.
Los primeros raperos Omni. No entendí
on
bien.
The ground.
Oh, underground.
Like underground.
Yeah. He's saying that that basically, you know, the ones that started doing first that rap were others like before him and some of the other ones that were doing underground rap. Okay.
Después vino también toda aquella época de los notorios B.I.G., de los Tupac y toda aquella generación.
De los 90.
De los 90.
Yeah. Later on, some of the artists, after those that he named previously, later on came, you know, the Tupac and el otro que nombraste.
Notorious Big. Notorious Big.
Oh, yeah, Biggie, yeah.
Biggie Small, como le decíamos.
Biggie Smalls, sí. Yes, Biggie Smalls.
De hecho, Mike, imagínate tú que los primeros raperos, o sea, los raperos cubanos de la década de los 90 usaban para cantar sus canciones los beats los instrumentales de esas agrupaciones.
Sí.
He's saying actually the first rappers of those times use the beats to record some of their music to those old songs from those artists.
Yeah, it's very similar to here. Back in the days when people didn't have you could tell them it's back in the days when they didn't have like beat machines and stuff like that. Like certain albums would have like the instrumental version, and they'll rap over the instrumental version, and they'll rap over that and make their own version of their songs. So that's cool.
Sí, que
That's real cool.
básicamente él dice que es como aquí en los Estados Unidos, que algunos de los artistas antes que no tenían esos beats, ¿no? They didn't have the beats, you said, right?
Yeah, la máquina de pasar la música, the beat machine. The beat
They
machine.
didn't have no tenían la máquina de hacer la música y entonces ellos usaban algunos de esos también.
Eso fue la misma cosa.
Sí.
Y a veces usaban los cassettes y se oían los DJ, como
Ahí
los mixtapes.
los cassettes.
Era
Con los
mixtapes.
cassettes moviendo el cassette para darle vuelta para adelante y para atrás por una cara y por la otra.
Sí,
So Mike says
yes.
they would use the cassettes, and then Raudel was saying that yes, they would use the cassettes and flip them from one side to the other and all that.
Yes. My other question is this: were there other at least Cuban hip hop artists before you that you saw that as inspiration when you started before you started rapping? I mean, I know he had the American influence, but were there any Cuban artists before him that he saw that he was inspired to like also be a rapper himself?
Sí.
And if
¿Tuviste
so,
alguno?
Can I get like a couple of artists' names?
Okay. ¿Tuviste alguna influencia de algunos raperos cubanos antes que tú y el grupo tuyo que usaste como referencia o te influenciaron en alguna forma para tu música?
Sí, aparte de la influencia del hip hop americano, también por ejemplo, yo tuve influencia de algunos artistas locales, algunos artistas cubanos, que eran bandas, fundamentalmente una banda que a mí me impresionó mucho la primera vez que la vi, que se llamaba Grandes Ligas, que ellos después tuvieron un proyecto que se llamaba EPG&B, pero
so
Grandes Ligas.
He's saying that before that, yes, that there were some local bands in Cuba, you know, local ones that influenced him too, that he admired those. And there was a band called, ¿cómo se llamaba otra vez la banda? B&G? No.
La banda se llamaba Grandes Ligas, que tenían un proyecto después que se llamaba EPG&B.
Grandes Ligas, pero which is the Great Leagues, you know.
Yes.
Later on, they had another project called EPENG somewhere.
Okay. Now he got it. I got it. All right. You know, with Cuba, you know, it's very surprising when people actually try to take some activism. So, you know, with hip hop, you know, we actually spoke about this, you know, they talk about partying, violence, et cetera, et cetera. What made Raudel take like the activist route when he started becoming a rapper?
Sí, él dice que como en Cuba que hay veces difícil hacer el activismo con rap o en música, que entonces como en otras partes, ¿no? Creo que te refieres aquí a los Estados Unidos, ¿no? También de que usan cosas diarias, ¿no? De lo que está pasando, ¿no? Aquí y eso, pero entonces, ¿qué fue lo que a ti te hizo hacer como esta música de rap o qué es lo que, ¿no?
Ahorita,
de activista.
Ahorita te decía, Mike, que yo nací, mi música hip hop nació al calor de las experiencias y la realidad cubana.
He's
Cuba
saying, Mike, that his hip hop music began with his experience, with the tough experience that he was facing, you know, that he was experiencing in Cuba with that dictatorship that exists in Cuba.
Mike, Cuba es una dictadura.
Cuba is a dictatorship.
Y el arte de resistencia, cuando vives en un sistema dictatorial, es muy interesante, muy atrevido, muy peligroso.
The art of resistance when you live in such a government, a regime of dictatorial, it's very interesting but very dangerous.
Yeah, that which leads to my follow-up to that question. We know that in Cuba, speaking against the government is a no-no. So was he getting any kind of pushback, or even was he getting any death threats while he was speaking against the government?
Ya dice Mike que ya sabemos que hacer ese tipo de música en Cuba es muy peligroso y entonces pregunta, ¿te dieron algún tipo de amenaza a tu vida o te crearon algún problema el tú
Sí,
hacer
sí.
esa música? ¿Te amenazaron con tu vida o otra forma que tu vida estaba en peligro?
Lo que pasa es que nosotros comenzamos a hacer la música. Yo, por ejemplo, siempre tuve inquietudes sociales y políticas con mi música.
He says that they started doing music and he personally had a lot of, he would ask himself questions. He had some things about politics and social issues. He had inquiries himself about social issues going on. So, and he in particular, now he's going to say,
Y lo que sucede es que a medida que mi discurso se fue radicalizando, es que empiezan los problemas.
he says that at the time that then he started his, let's say, his lyrics to his music, his speech, his discourse, the speech of the words of his in his songs, this is where that as his speech was getting more radicalized, meaning more pressure to the regime, this is where it started getting very tough and very dangerous for him in that country.
Yo particularmente, Mike, fui objeto de amenazas, de detenciones arbitrarias, detenciones policiales arbitrarias, advertencias de lo que me podía pasar si seguía asumiendo ese discurso tan crítico con el régimen.
He suffered, warnings, then later on, like threats. He advertencias, like warnings, if you continue doing this is going to happen to you. The detentions, like they detained him several times. So, like threats of we're going to put you in prison, that kind of thing, if you continue doing this type of speech or this type of music.
Y había un elemento que era muy importante, Mike, que éramos los que hacíamos esta música. En mi caso, yo era pobre y negro en un régimen tan racista y tan radicalizado.
There was a very, I'm sorry, there was a very important element in all of this, in him doing his music, is that he was poor. For those, those people that were there, they were poor, and that he was Black. So he says that those were two elements that were very important at that time, and that then he would feel even more pressure. Sentías más presión con estas dos cosas, ¿no?
Exacto.
Exactly.
I'm glad he said that, because I'm gonna bring that in full circle later on in this interview. So I'm glad he said that early.
Sé que bueno que lo dijiste eso, porque después te va a hacer otras preguntas, va a hablar de eso un poco más.
Okay. Y esa era mi realidad.
That was my reality. Yes.
I'm curious, because I know there's certain songs that like are banned in Cuba. Is his music, like, so far, is it banned? Is it illegal to listen to his music, or does he still get a leadway in looking at him as a traitor?
Que tiene una curiosidad porque él sabe que alguna música está prohibida en Cuba. Entonces él quiere saber si tu música está prohibida en Cuba, o hay algo legal que ellos dicen que no se puede escuchar, o otra.
Ok. La música de todos los que hacíamos crítica al régimen y a la dictadura estaba prohibida en Cuba oficialmente.
Music that came from people that were doing some kind of critique or criticism to that regime was prohibited, or is prohibited still.
La gente la escuchaba en sus casas.
People would listen to it in their homes.
Pero oficialmente en los lugares públicos y tal, no era posible.
But officially at any public places, outside or any from your home, it was not possible.
Y mucho menos en la última época que estuvimos en Cuba, no podíamos dar conciertos ya dentro de la isla.
And the last time that, he was in Cuba, living there, he could not do any concerts at all. They were prohibited from doing concerts with that type of music.
Porque habían algunas bandas que eran prohibidas oficialmente por el régimen.
There were some bands that were officially, prohibited to play or to be listened to by the regime. The regime did not permit those bands.
Wow. And I want to give a side note there to my audience. A side note. The reason why I asked that question because it's very well known that certain artists, their music is not allowed. Hence, Celia Cruz. If you know the story behind her, she was not allowed to go back to Cuba. If you, I'll let you. Oh yeah, I'll finish that up. Yeah, she wasn't allowed to go to Cuba. It's a long story behind that. I don't want to drag it, but if you Google it, she couldn't get allowed because she didn't agree with the politics. And at this moment, we have a Latin winning award artist over a song. He didn't kill anybody. He didn't do anything illegal. He just did a song, and he's in jail over that song. And that song is illegal. Hence the popular song "Plata y Vida."
Right. Yeah, so él estaba diciendo, ¿no? Que tenía esa curiosidad y que quería decir de cómo, ¿no? Como hay estas restricciones en la música en Cuba y hasta como hay artistas, ¿no? Como Celia Cruz, que no pudieron, que estaba prohibido irla a ella en Cuba. Y en este momento que hay también un artista que cantó una canción que es Michael Osorbo, que te refieres, ¿no?
Yeah, Michael Osorbo.
Y que está en la cárcel también, por eso.
Exacto, sí.
So free Michael Osorbo, free Michael Osorbo. One more time, free Michael Osorbo. You heard me, guys? So was that after he was getting that much pushback from the government, was the time that he decided I have to get out of here? And if so, when did he leave the island?
En ese momento que el gobierno te está apresurando, que está poniendo tanta presión y tanta, ¿no? intolerancia con eso, con tu música, que fue en ese momento que tú decidiste, bueno, voy a salir de Cuba, voy a vivir en otra parte, y si eso fue más o menos en ese tiempo, ¿cuándo es que saliste de Cuba?
Yo salí de Cuba en el año 2019.
Oh, it was recent. Okay.
Sí, sí, bastante reciente. Sí, bastante reciente. Yo salí en el año. Yo lo que había venido a los Estados Unidos muchas veces antes.
He came out of Cuba officially in 2019, like at the beginning of 2019. But he says that basically he had come to the US before several times.
Ok, pero había venido muchas veces antes. Incluso las veces anteriores que había venido, ya yo tenía estos problemas con el régimen dentro de la isla, que no podía cantar, que me amenazaban constantemente. Ellos querían que yo me quedara a vivir fuera de Cuba ya.
He says that inclusively, in those times that he was coming in, he was, being able to come here visit, and the government was, the regime was actually threatening him and, about doing his music. But what they really wanted him to do was to leave Cuba permanently. That's what they wanted him to do, to leave Cuba permanently. Y sería, bueno, Raudel, no sé si una sugerencia que pudiera ser que le expliques a la audiencia también por qué es que venías, ¿no? Hay veces, maybe Mike, porque como muchas personas no pueden salir de Cuba, ellos
bueno, yo venía.
I was saying that maybe it would be good, like, for him to explain how could he come out of Cuba sometimes.
Cuba tuvo.
Oh, please do.
Sí, por favor, que lo explique, Raudel.
Cuba tuvo en monopolio mucho tiempo, en monopolio oficial de las personas que podían salir o no de la isla.
Cuba had a monopoly for a long, long time of who could come in and out of Cuba and who could,
porque ellos tenían un recurso que se llamaba la carta la carta blanca o permiso de salida.
They had a resource called the white letter, la carta blanca, or permit to leave the
Que
country.
solamente
Only
si el régimen
if
te
the
daba
regime,
esa autorización era que tú podías salir de Cuba.
only if the regime gave you that authorization is that you could leave Cuba.
Eso en el año, no recuerdo exactamente, pero fue por los 2000, por los años 2000, no recuerdo exactamente. Ellos quitan ese recurso.
Yes, it was, he's saying that only in the years 2000 something, he's saying that then the government took that resource out, they took it out.
Y aquellos quitar ese recurso tenían entonces menos control de las personas que podían salir.
So at that time that the regime took out that kind of permission with that letter or authority that they would give to do that, then the regime had less control of who could come out of the country or not.
Porque eventualmente o aparentemente ya no había que contar con el régimen para poder salir de Cuba.
He says, quote unquote, like apparently, or at that time it seemed like if you didn't need to ask so much permission to the regime to leave or not. Then he noticed how he says quote unquote, because it's not the issue. We know
Wow.
that it's still, they have the control. Yo le estoy diciendo que como tú estás haciendo con los dedos, que quiere decir quote unquote en comillas.
Sí, que es aparentemente, que es
sí,
supuestamente.
Que aparentemente, supuestamente, que entonces, claro, que tú estás diciendo como que luce eso, pero que de todas formas el régimen tiene el control.
So, all right. So, wow, it's a lot to take in here. It's a lot. Okay, I'll speak on myself. When my parents left, and you could tell them this, you can help them translate. When my parents left.
Yeah, go do, if you could do shorter shorter lengths.
Yeah, it's gonna be short. Don't worry about that. I'm not gonna make it less difficult.
For my memory. So,
yeah.
dice él que cuando sus padres salieron de Cuba, entonces.
They never came. They never went back. So speak it like when they left, they left. They never went back. It was like they're not leaving until things change. Hence, I've never gone to Cuba.
Oh, okay. Cuando sus padres salieron, ellos nunca volvieron más a Cuba y que él mismo nunca ha ido a Cuba.
So when he left, I would assume he left by himself. Did he came with anybody else, or was just him by himself? And if he did came by himself, what was the effects him being in this country alone without his loved ones?
Él pregunta que si tú saliste solo y si, ¿no? Y si saliste solo, entonces cuáles son los efectos, ¿no? Que saliste, si dejaste a familia, personas allá.
Bueno, imagínate, muy duro. Esa separación familiar fue muy dura, es muy dura todavía.
He says that yes, that imagine that family separation was very difficult, very strong, very
Porque
hard.
yo estoy solo acá, yo tengo toda mi familia en Cuba.
He says that he's here by himself and he has all his family in Cuba.
Which hence the song that he had called My Apology, Mi Apología, which we're going to talk to later on that show. So it all makes sense now. But we'll talk about
él
that.
dice que por eso hiciste esa canción, Mi Apología, que después ahorita él te va a hablar un poquito más de eso. De esa canción.
Esa canción Apología fue uno de esos desahogos de estar en el exilio.
He says that song Apología or Apology, is one of those moments that you release, or you express yourself about how you feel when you are alone in exile by yourself, without family.
I wanted to give another sidebar, and I need I'm gonna need your help with this, Marlene. When I was doing my research in regards to Raudel and his career, he did an interview It's actually one of the first one if you see it pop up on YouTube. He did this interview and he talked about the regime, but there was a spot there where where it was a segment in the show where he was talking about the relationship with his mom and he got real emotional. And even watching that clip, I got emotional myself because that's the relationship I have with my mother. And you know, if you have kids, especially a relationship with their mom, there's nothing like a mom and son relationship. Just let them know that that interview really touched me and it really dug deep of what not only what a mother and son's relationship is, but what the regime does to the family where they want to separate them and not agree with their nonsense. It really touched me.
Él dice que bueno, que quiere decirte algo, alguna nota aquí ahora separado, de que él haciendo la investigación para hacer esta entrevista contigo, que él buscó alguna información tuya, Raudel, y que entonces encontró esta entrevista que hiciste hace un tiempecito atrás, y que te hablan de tu música y tu vida y que hablas de tu mamá. Entonces que se ve que estabas emocionado al hablar de tu mamá y algunas canciones, ¿no? Y de lo que significaba tu mamá para ti, la historia con tu mamá, y que entonces dice que a él le tocó eso, ¿no? Le afectó eso de una forma sentimental, emocional, porque él se acuerda de la relación que tiene él con su mamá y toda relación que hay con una madre, que casi siempre la mayoría de las personas tienen una relación no buena, casi todo el mundo, pero que eso es algo que a él como que le dio sentimiento, ¿no? Que that's basically it, ¿no? What you said.
And what the regime does to the family when they want to separate.
Que ahí él vio lo que hace el régimen para separar a la familia ¿no? Desde el principio. Lo que ha hecho el régimen para separar todas las familias.
Sí.
He says yes.
Yeah. So with that being said, I know he came to the States a whole bunch of times. So, and I know living in Cuba, they suppress a lot of information in regards to the United States of America. So when he came to the United States of America, what was his first like shell shock? The thing that he saw surprising and shocking when he came to the States.
Dice él que bueno, que como viviendo en Cuba antes de que pudiera salir a alguna parte o algo, ¿no? Y aquí a los Estados Unidos, como Cuba esconde un poco de la información que las personas reciben.
Un poco no. Un poco no.
Bastante.
He says not a lot. That Cuba, I'm translating, to him what Michael said about Cuba hiding some information from people in the island, and he says no, a little bit, no, a lot. So, entonces que como que fue algo que te dio un shock, así que que te alarmó, algo distinto que viste de los Estados Unidos o fuera de otro país o algo, ¿no? Cuando saliste de Cuba primeramente, ¿qué cosa te causó un efecto a ti?
La sensación de libertad. Ni fue la comida, o sea, todo muy bonito, todo muy impresionante, pero esa es la sensación de libertad, de que tú puedes andar por donde quieras, que nadie te está mirando, que nadie te está vigilando.
Yeah, he says that definitely that sensation of freedom, of liberty, that was what really, got him, impressed him. That sensation that nobody's really looking at you, nobody is surveilling you, no one is checking up on you, like the regime does in Cuba, that they have people watching you. So he says that sensation, on top of, besides everything about the food and all the other stuff that was very nice and pretty and everything, besides all of that, this sensation of freedom, that was very remarkable.
Yes, and
Yes.
that's one thing for sure. I mean, a lot of people in the States don't recognize our struggle and pain with that, so they really take freedom for granted here in this country. I will say that.
Yes. Dice él que bueno, que eso mismo de que como aquí en este mismo país hay veces las personas no se dan cuenta el precio de la libertad y ahí puede ser que lo tomen por sentado, ¿no? Que tomen como que no lo valoran la libertad. como debe ser, dice Michael.
I mean, I'll say that you could make a song about President Biden. You're not going to jail.
Sí, dice él que puedes hacer una canción del presidente Biden y no vas a ir a la cárcel.
Exacto, exacto.
Says exactly.
Eso te digo, esa sensación de libertad de que pasabas por lado un policía y te miraba, o más bien te saludaba, que pasara por el aeropuerto y nadie te estuviera, ven acá, o sea.
He says that sensation of that you went around and nobody was really, checking up on you, or that you went by a policeman, and that they were not, checking up on you, or that you could go by that he says that they actually would say hello to you, the policeman. That was a good, sensation for
La
him.
cortesía de la gente.
And going by the airport, that nobody stops you if you go by the airport or anything and asks you where you're going, what you're doing. And he says now, he added on, that the courtesy of the people was important.
Claro, es que yo venía también de un lugar donde se vive bajo presión todo el tiempo.
He says that, well, that he was coming from a place where you live with a lot of pressure all the time.
And yeah, it's just unbelievable. You could go to one extreme to another. You know, when you're in a country, the extreme is just like so, like unbelievably like outrageous. The day you come over here, the extreme is like they let you live, they let you be a human being.
Yes.
So
sí, él dice de los extremos de un país a otro, ¿no? Que y aquí entonces vienes aquí puedes vivir, sí te dejan vivir, ¿no?
Yes.
So
yes.
I want to touch on something real quick, because I was going to go to another topic, but he mentioned something about people in Cuba surveilling you from the citizens, that they really keep an eye on you. There's that. And if he can't talk about the supposedly like neighborhood snitching that goes around when people think you're not doing your job, or they should be somewhere. Can he touch upon that?
Dice él que si puedes hablar un poquito así acerca de cómo la vigilancia que hay en los barrios, ¿no? En el vecindario, y que como que si algún vecino o algo te está, como le decimos,
sí, eso
chivateando.
Eso desde que Fidel Castro llegó al poder, desde que el régimen de Fidel Castro llegó al poder, eso siempre existió. De hecho, ellos tenían organizaciones que se dedicaban a velarle a los ciudadanos en Cuba.
He says that, yes, that definitely ever since Fidel Castro came into power, that existed. And that surveillance, and the neighborhood watch of people, and an organized way of the neighborhood, and a neighborhood watch, looking out of what everybody's doing. And that has always existed.
Yes. Yeah.
To report you, para reportarte, ¿no? En sí, para reportarte, para... ¿no?
Sí, para... era aparentemente para si veían a alguien haciendo lo que ellos llamaban como contrarrevolución o algo, ¿no? Pero al fin del día estaban velando todos los pasos que daban los ciudadanos, cualquier cosa.
He's saying that basically it was, like they would say, like, to see if anybody was doing something against the regime. But basically what it turned out, it was not just to what people were doing against the regime, is that they were surveilling every step that you took, every step, every movement that you took, whether you went out, you went in, everything.
Yeah. So it's not really like the neighborhood watch, it's a neighborhood snitch. It's safe to say that.
Entonces no es solo como una vigilancia de eso, son como unos chivatones.
Yeah. So with that being said, I want to touch to the next topic, which is the fun topic I like to talk about, is the racism in Cuba. Since he lived there, the perception they have here is that Cuba is like some kind of socialist racial utopia that everybody gets treated equally, everybody gets a fair shot. Like, the perception they paint there is that racism does not exist because the revolution cured that. Can he touch upon the racism that goes on in Cuba and the false perception that everybody gets treated equal?
Okay, él dice, Raudel, que él quisiera hablar también un poquito acerca de esa percepción que la revolución o ese régimen ha querido enseñarle como al mundo, ¿no? Y aquí a muchos, de que en Cuba todo está bien y no todo funciona perfectamente y que no hay racismo, que no hay ningún problema, que es como una utopía. Cuba es una utopía, ¿no? Como
Eso es absolutamente propaganda oficial.
he says that's completely official propaganda.
La realidad cubana
The reality of the Cuba,
es todo lo contrario.
it's all contrary to that.
Hay un régimen totalitario
There's a totalitarian regime
que ha devenido en dictadura.
that has come, in dictatorship.
Hay un control férreo sobre la vida de los ciudadanos.
There is a severe control over the citizens.
No hay libertad de expresión.
There's no free expression or free speech.
No hay separación de poderes.
There's no separation of powers,
Hay un régimen de partido único.
There's only one party of the regime only.
Si no perteneces al Partido Comunista o a las organizaciones del régimen, no tienes muchas posibilidades de hacer nada en tu vida.
If you're not part or you're not part of any of the groups of the communist groups of the regime, you don't have much possibility of doing anything there.
Y hay un racismo brutal que siempre han tratado de esconder bajo la alfombra.
And he says that there is a severe racism that the regime has tried to cover under the rug.
That's wild. That is so wild. I sense, I could be wrong here, but I sense there's like an sense of, I feel like there's a sense of arrogance towards the dictatorship, that they have this perception to save people. But once you expose them or question their authority, they have this how can I word this up? This arrogance, like you should be grateful for us because we saved you. And I think they do that a lot with the Black Cubans when when they seem to be the ones that want to rebel against the system and make a song or protest or do something that said like we're not being treated the way we should be treated. Is it fair to say that there's like a sense of arrogance that you should be grateful for all this that we're giving to you, the crumbs that you're giving us?
Yeah. Dice él que que él quiere ver si tú piensas eso también, que él coge como un sentido de que hay cierta arrogancia que sale del régimen, que dice o piensa y le dice al público, al pueblo, a todos, de que, wow, nosotros te hemos dado todo y tienes que estar agradecido porque te hemos dado todo. Y en especial al afrodescendiente, o a la persona de la raza negra en Cuba, como nosotros te hemos ayudado, te hemos dado esto, de todo, y tú tienes que estar agradecido con nosotros y no hacer
No.
nada. Y ahora que hay personas
Eso
que...
primero, eso número uno, es una de las formas de populismo más burdas y manipuladoras que hay.
He says, but en referencia a lo que él dice que el régimen
Exacto,
trata de...
referencia a eso.
He's saying that that's like a it's not true. It's one of the most how do you say, most rudest ways that the regime tries to show that, like, make it like a popular belief that this is what that this is really what we do. We've done all this for you and you should be grateful.
Y número dos, es un chantaje.
Number two,
Es un chantaje total contra la población fundamentalmente negra. Que dicho sea de paso, en Cuba todos son pobres, o la inmensa mayoría de la población es pobre, pero los negros todavía son más pobres que el resto.
He's
Hoy
saying
todavía,
that is like a chantaje. Ahora se me olvidó la palabra.
We could say there's a whole bunch of BS. It's a whole bunch of BS.
Well,
yeah,
that but chantaje is like they're they're saying they're trying to hold the people how do you say they're saying to you, you know, we've done all this for you and you should be grateful. All of that is like a way of controlling you. And that, yes, that is not true, but that he's saying that the population in Cuba, everyone now after communism is poor. Everyone is poor. Everyone has all these troubles, but then the Black population in Cuba is even more, you know, is even poorer, you know, than the others. He believes. Mm-hmm.
I'll share another side note. I had somebody on the show, and I've been getting a lot of Afro-Cuban descendants on my show. And one thing that the regime did to the people was send up a great indoctrination of like not to come to the United States because you had to deal with all this racism, and we don't have that here. What are the just to let him know, like when I was, you know, trying to get my lessons and teachings towards Cuba and the stuff that goes on there, a lot of the elders was telling me, because I went to the protests in DC, they were telling me a lot of the system, a lot of the things that happen within the system, they indoctrinate us not to come to the States because of all this terrible things will happen to us. And then once they came over here, they found out everything was just a lie, and they got selected with these things. And this didn't this happened until the early 80s when my parents came. Just,
Él
just
dice
want to let them know.
sí, que él quiere dejarte saber a ti de que esto de algo que él ha traído a varias personas, ¿no? Afrodescendientes cubanos al show, para que hablen también, ¿no? De informar a la audiencia de Michael acerca de las cosas que pasan en Cuba. Entonces él dice que una de las cosas que le explican es de cómo el régimen, desde que empezó el comunismo en Cuba, él les mintió a todos, pero sobre todo al negro, ¿no? Al afrodescendiente, diciéndole de que no puedes salir porque si te vas para los Estados Unidos o otro lugar, pero sobre todo los Estados Unidos te van a discriminar, te va a ir la vida, te va a ir mal, te van a hacer daño, te van a matar.
Hasta el otro día, hasta hace poquito, todavía en Cuba, estaban con el discurso de que en los Estados Unidos los negros no podían salir de noche, de que mataban a los negros por el mero hecho de ser negros, caminando por la calle, los mataban.
He says that Raudel is saying that that just until the other day in Cuba, they were.
Y eso fue hasta el otro día.
He says until recently, they were saying that in Cuba that the Cuban people, you know, they were saying that in the U.S. people could not leave. You know, African American people could not leave at night. They could not leave during the day because they were killing them. And that he says just until the other day.
Wow, the indoctrination is real. Is really, really real. And just to let him know one more time, this is why I have this platform, because I want to bring awareness to my audience and, you know, to show that we, the Afro-Cuban community, have a story. And I thank him for coming to my platform and shares the story that goes on within our community. So.
Yeah, él dice que te quiere decir gracias, ¿no? Pero sí, de que es importante para él, por eso traerte a ti y a otros y la comunidad afrocubana para que diga la historia, para compartirla con otros.
También Michael, la comunidad negra en los Estados Unidos ha crecido, se ha educado en una muy mala información del régimen de La Habana.
He says,
con
Michael,
el tema
I
del
want to tell you,
racismo y los negros.
He says, Michael, I want to say that the African American community in the U.S. has been, in a way, indoctrinated, has been informed in a wrong way about, you know, what is happening in Cuba with Black people. Lo que está pasando en Cuba con las personas negras, ¿no?
Hay un discurso oficial salido del régimen en Cuba que es absolutamente falso. El relato social de la vida de los negros en Cuba es absolutamente falso.
He says there is a false speech or false information that comes straight from the regime that trying to influence others about how life is for Black people in Cuba, or in general for everyone, but also for Black people in Cuba, of how life really is. Entonces, lo que tú quieres decir es que como que han tratado de influenciar a muchos
Sí, han
afroamericanos.
engañado, o sea, han querido dar la imagen de que el régimen de La Habana amaba a los negros, que se preocupaba por los negros.
He says that they've tried to give the image to many people around the world, but around, you know, like African Americans, that the regime, the Cuban communist regime, loves the Black people and that they will approve of them and all that. And he says that that's not the
Fidel
case.
Castro
He says Fidel Castro
creó un mito
created a myth
de que él
that
amaba a los negros.
he loved Black people.
Y Fidel Castro fue un manipulador
He says Fidel Castro was a manipulator
y un racista.
and a racist.
Él construyó ese mito del amor a los negros
He created that myth of love for Black people
sobre dos elementos fundamentales.
over two fundamental elements.
Primero, cuando vino a los Estados Unidos,
First, when he came to the U.S.
en los años 60, Malcolm X estaba vivo todavía.
in the 60s, when even Malcolm X was still alive.
Y recuerdo que no lo dejaron hospedarse en algún hotel a una asamblea de la ONU que vino a hablar.
He says that he remembers, or that Fidel was not able to stay, you know, in a hotel near, I think the, you know,
En Nueva York.
some in New York, some assembly or UN.
Yeah, it
or
was in
something like
Harlem.
that he
Yeah,
came
it was in Harlem. Yeah, it was in Harlem.
in
Y
Harlem.
después vino,
He went to Harlem.
He later
y después que
came.
hizo él estratégicamente, no era porque él quería a los negros,
He
es
says he did
porque
that not because he loved Black people.
él hizo de la propaganda pública una de sus herramientas para expandir su imagen.
He says that he created that. It was like a public tool that he used to expand his popularity, you know, in a way worldwide.
Y entonces, ¿qué hizo? Se fue a hospedar a un barrio negro en
And then he
Harlem,
went to a Black neighborhood in Harlem.
al Hotel Teresa, creo que fue.
He believes it's
Teresa.
Hotel Teresa.
It is.
Ahí contactó con algunos líderes de la comunidad negra que eran afín a la izquierda, que eran afín a Fidel Castro.
He says that there he got in contact with some African Americans that were, you know, in tune, or they were, you know, kind of like they were praising, or they were in favor of Fidel Castro.
Y se reunieron con él en el Hotel Teresa.
They united with him, or they had a meeting with him in that Hotel Teresa.
Y aquella foto que salió esa tarde-noche, aquella foto de Fidel reunido con los líderes afroamericanos, fundamentalmente la foto con Malcolm X.
He says that a picture that they took there with Fidel, you know, united with all these African Americans there, and Malcolm X and all of them around. He says that picture, ¿qué cosa?
La propaganda castrista usó esa imagen para dar a entender que Fidel sí quería a los negros.
He says that
y tenía una buena relación con la raza negra.
The Castro propaganda created that image to show people, you know, here in the U.S. and abroad, that Fidel Castro and that regime had a very good relationship with Black people.
Y la segunda fue cuando empezó a mandar.
The second thing that he used was when he started ruling
ciudadanos cubanos que estaban en el ejército a luchar a pelear una lucha en África que no le pertenecía.
He says that later on was when he went to fight, you know, a battle, a war in Africa, which didn't, you know, it was not of his doing. It was not how do you say? It didn't. He shouldn't have gone to it. No debiera haberlo hecho.
It wasn't none of our business. None of our business to
Yeah,
stick
it was
involved.
none of our business.
Había
Right.
otros intereses, él tenía otros intereses ahí.
Yeah, he says that he
Sobre
had
esos dos mitos
Fidel
de la
Castro had the other interests there.
de la visita a Estados Unidos, al barrio aquel de Harlem, y aquella foto con los líderes afroamericanos. Y después lo de la guerra en África, en Angola específicamente. Él creó el mito de que él amaba, de que él quería la raza negra, de que él se preocupaba. Cuando la realidad era que los negros en Cuba estuvieron olvidados por el régimen de Fidel Castro toda la vida.
He says that with those two myths, the first one when he was in that meeting with, you know, with the African-American leaders or others in that community in Harlem, and then the other one of being involved in Angola specifically, you know, in Africa, to help fight, you know, in the war there, says that those two reasons, they created like a myth that gave the impression to many people that Fidel really loves Black people, and that it's not true, que diciendo que no es verdad, ¿no? That he says that Fidel throughout his life tried to show that, pero que no era, but that it was not true, que no era verdad lo que él trató de enseñar, ¿no? Con eso que dijiste, Raudel.
Exacto.
Yes.
Sí, can I say something here, Mike, if you don't mind?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, no, because I'm just
¿Entendiste la idea,
translating.
Michael?
No, claro, claro, entiendo todo. Entiendo todo.
Sí. Y si puedo decir algo, bueno, en español porque los dos entienden. If I may say something in Spanish, because both of you understand. De que I'll translate in English in a moment. Que sería bueno decir, porque eso mismo que habló Raudel es muy importante, y cómo los afrodescendientes aquí, muchos cuando van y visitan a Cuba y solo les enseñan una parte, y ellos también creen que Cuba, que Fidel ha sido bueno con todos, con los
No, ellos
blancos,
son
con los
víctimas de la
negros,
propaganda y
que los mismos afrodescendientes, yo los he oído decir en otras partes, como de que, bueno, pero aquí los policías te hacen goza, dicen eso. O bueno, aquí también hay, no quieren a los negros. Eso es un discurso que dicen mucho. Entonces, ¿cuál es la diferencia de aquí y de Cuba? Sería bueno si pudieras decir eso. So I was saying that, what do you think, Mike? Is it okay? Can I say?
Perfect. Go ahead.
That I was saying, like, you know, I was saying that a lot of times what he said about Fidel, I've noticed since I'm a college teacher, professor, I notice a lot of times, you know, the discourse is here. A lot of African Americans sometimes do not believe you, do not know the reality of all Cubans, of Black, white, Asian, you know, others, and that they say, well, Cuba is as bad as that. It may have some racism, you know, with the regime and all that, but here in the U.S. it's worse. Or this happens also in the U.S. and they portray the U.S. as worse than what it is. Okay, that's the impression that we've seen sometimes, you know. So I was saying that Raudel, you know, could show what he's experienced in Cuba and here. Que entonces yo le expliqué de que como muchas veces algunos de los afrodescendientes aquí, sobre todo ahora en los últimos 2 años, cuando la pandemia y todo eso, que dicen que no, que aquí es peor en los Estados Unidos lo que está pasando con racismo y con muchas de las cosas que los policías que no los tratan mal a la gente y todo eso, Raudel. ¿Y qué tú le dirías de eso? Like what, right, Mike? Like what would he?
Yeah.
He compared both worlds. Él ha
pero le
comparado
diría
los
que
dos lugares, Cuba ya de adulto y aquí también, y en otras partes del mundo.
pero que le diría que no entiendo.
¿Qué tú dirías? Sí, porque muchos de ellos dicen que en Cuba todo está perfecto y que no
Pero
hay
muchos
esos
de ellos de
problemas
que,
con los policías.
muchos quién.
Que muchas personas, como tú mencionaste, de afrodescendientes, aquí americanos, que
Ajá.
tienen esa falsa percepción de cómo el régimen trata al negro y eso. Y entonces cuando uno le dice lo que tú has dicho, algunos hay veces dicen, bueno, no, pero aquí en los Estados Unidos te maltratan también. Y los Estados Unidos es peor.
Pero eso, pero a ver, ¿y
Muchas
qué
veces
cambia?
lo que tú
¿Qué
has
cambia eso? Ok,
experimentado.
en los Estados Unidos han habido este tipo de situaciones. En Cuba también. ¿Y qué cambia eso?
Ujú.
O sea, porque pasa en los Estados Unidos, o sea, ¿cuál es la lógica aquí? Pero bueno, no protestes si son abusivos con los negros dentro de Cuba, porque de todos modos aquí también, ¿no? Y esa es la lógica que hay que aplicar.
Ujú. Yeah, he's saying that yes, in Cuba, there is some, sometimes if anyone says that in Cuba there's no abuse or that the police abuse, but here in the US also, but he feels that at times maybe are people trying to say, well, it happens in the US too, so what are they trying to say when they say that don't protest in Cuba?
Por lo
Or
menos en Cuba, por lo menos aquí, cuando suceden en la mayoría de esos, muchos de esos hechos, por ejemplo, no todos, pero algunos de esos hechos suceden y tienen la oportunidad que públicamente los ciudadanos de este país se pueden enterar de lo que pasó. Los ciudadanos de este país pueden tener un juicio crítico de lo que pasó.
he says that at least here, when something like that happens, let's say to anyone or to an African American,
Los
that
ciudadanos aquí tienen el derecho de organizarse y de protestar públicamente por un hecho así.
he says that the citizens of the US, anyone, have the right to protest and to organize and
En el
do,
mejor de los casos,
in the best cases,
se toman medidas con policías que hayan estado en una situación.
Mhm.
Lo mismo prisión que lo que sea. Se toman medidas en un momento
Mhm.
determinado.
He
Si el
says,
escándalo,
Mhm.
si el escándalo se da, si,
He says that in many of the cases, of course, you have if let's
pero
say
en
a
Cuba
police
no.
does any harm or anything like that, that here
En Cuba
you can not
sucede
only protest, but you can actually take them and sentence some of the
si hay
police.
algún tipo
But in
de
Cuba,
violencia policial en Cuba, se oculta, se esconde, se justifica.
he says that if in Cuba there's some kind of violence against the people, that they hide it, they don't show it. They don't want to show it.
Yeah.
No existe o sea, el recurso de inocencia. La policía siempre tiene la razón en Cuba.
He says in Cuba, the police always is right. There is no,
La presunción de
you're innocent
inocencia no
until
existe
proven
para el
guilty.
acusado
Sí. Sí, que
cuando se trata de problemas
you're
policiales.
innocent until proven guilty, es aquí en los Estados Unidos. Mhm.
Powerful,
But that
powerful,
in Cuba
powerful.
doesn't exist, he's saying.
Yeah. Wow. That's just powerful. Yeah.
Can,
So I want to bring. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no. I thought I was going to translate what you were saying.
Oh. Yeah, you want to tell me what's powerful? I only said one word. So.
No. I was getting ready. I was getting my motors ready.
All right. So I'm gonna just wrap this up already. I just want to just talk about the music. There was a couple of songs that I want to decode that I was going through his singles, and is these songs that were really cutting deep here. And I want to start off with oh, you can tell him that. You can tell him I want to talk about a couple of the songs that he had out and like the meaning behind those songs.
Ya, dice él que él quiere nada más que ahora ya que está concluyendo, pero que quiere preguntarte algunas cosas, detalles de algunas de las canciones y los significados que tienen y
Okay.
hacerte preguntas acerca de eso.
Yeah. I want to start it off with see if I'm saying it right. Estados de vuelta. Estados de vuelta.
Estamos de vuelta. Sí, eso es una canción de reivindicación del rap cubano.
He says that's a song about the how do you say it? the birth of the rap cubano, the Cuban
Es
rap.
una
Okay.
manera de decir que nosotros
The
seguimos haciendo
vindication. Mhm.
el rap crudo, el verdadero rap.
The revindication of rap, of Cuban rap. The how do you say, the hardcore rap.
Yes, yes. Okay, because I sense like you could tell like there was like a level of braggadocious, like arrogance, but in a good way, kind of confidence. I could sense like in the feeling, the way he was like expressing himself in the lyrics. I'm still trying to code the words to it, but I felt like a level of just like I'm the man on the microphone, so you don't mess with me when it comes to me in this rap because I'm the best at this, at what I do. If that's like the gist of it.
Ujú. Dice él que, bueno, que si en sí lo que estaba tratando de decir esa canción, en esa canción es como que, bueno, aquí soy o somos uno de los mejores en el rap, en la música y, ¿no? Como un
No,
tipo
no,
de,
no es que seamos los mejores, sino los que lo hacemos más real.
he says, no, not that we're the best, but that we make it more real.
Same thing, the best and the real idea. I'll take both. I'll take both.
Dice la misma, lo mismo, ajá, que lo más real, ajá, que toma los dos.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a dope song. The other one that he had was called my apology, mi apología. That's the one. Yeah,
Ajá, la otra, mi
that's it.
apología.
And
Y apología es un desahogo por la separación familiar y tal. Por lo tanto que extraño a mi familia, a mis hijos.
He says that my apología or my apology is it's like an emotional release of how much he misses his family.
yeah, that was I actually understood the words of that one. So that was a very a deep cut. Very I really sense the emotions in that song. Again,
Él entendió las palabras, la lírica de esa, y sintió la emoción, los sentimientos en esa canción.
Just for another side note, I know what that's like too, because I outside of my parents, I'm not able to see like other members of my family, like my cousin, uncles and aunts. I recently lost my grandmother. I couldn't go to the funeral, so I really felt the emotion in that song.
Oh, okay. And they're in Cuba? Mm.
They're only Cuba. They're only Cuba.
Oh, here. Yeah,
No, in Cuba. Cuba.
Oh, okay. Dice él que él entendió esa canción porque él ve ahora mismo, a veces se han muerto personas de su familia y su abuela y eso que están en Cuba y él no los ha podido ver, que él entiende el
Muy duro,
sentimiento de eso.
muy duro.
Raudel says it is very tough. It's, it's
Very,
strong.
very. That's our story. That's our story. It's just like you just got to get them. You just got to get used to it by now. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
And
Cuban
the
people
last,
are used to separations ever since communism.
yeah. So it's nothing new under the sun, And
Que el cubano está acostumbrado a tantas separaciones desde que comenzó el comunismo.
yeah. And the final song he had was Cuban Life Mattered, which I love the flip. I love the way he flipped that. He turned a
Bueno,
theme and turned to us. Me encantó cómo
Cuban
cambiaste
Life
la
Matter.
tema. Me encantó cómo
Cuban
cambiaste
Life
la
Matter
tema.
nace cuando el movimiento Black Lives Matter, cuando pasa lo de Floyd, como el asesinato de
George
crimen
Floyd.
de Floyd.
George Floyd.
George Floyd.
Sí.
Cuando
Él
eso
dice
estaba pasando, los
that
cubanos,
Cuban Lives Matter, I'm sorry, Cuban Lives Matter began when we had the Black Lives Matter, lo de George Floyd y Black Lives Matter.
cuando eso estaba pasando, los cubanos de aquí de la Florida, e incluso los cubanos en la isla, todo el mundo tenía puestos los ojos en eso que estaba pasando.
He says when that was happening, the Cubans in the island and here in Florida, everybody had their eyes in
Y era
what
un debate,
was happening. It was a
era
debate
un debate tremendo en los Estados Unidos, fuera de los Estados Unidos, pero en la comunidad cubana también.
in the U.S., in Cuba, in the world, and in with Cubans too.
Y yo dije, y yo decía, porque yo veía a los cubanos con mucha efervescencia con el tema de lo que estaba pasando con George Floyd. Y a mí se me ocurrió decir, ok, un día puse un post en mis redes, en mis plataformas, que decía, ok, cubanos, preocúpense por lo que está pasando con Floyd, pero recuerden que nosotros tenemos nuestro propio drama que tenemos que resolver. Y la vida de los cubanos también importa. Y así nació esa canción.
Yeah. Si tú dices los cubanos allá en Cuba se metieron mucho en eso de lo de.
Sí, sí, no, y los de aquí también, todo el mundo estaba en ese debate.
Yeah. He says that, that he was saying that, yeah, the Black Lives Matter in Cuba, there was a big movement of Cubans, saying that, well, yes, they got into the George Floyd situation and everything. Actually, that was an abuse, of power by police and all of that kind of debate, and both in Cuba and in here, and that he was saying, well, but yes, we're worried about this here, but you also in Cuba, we do also have those issues. We may have those issues. So we have to also remember that the Cuban lives matter too. And that's how he came out with that song name, Cuban Lives Matter. Sí, que quizás y traduje lo que dijiste y que, en sí tú no querías decir de que no, la vida de George Floyd o de otras personas aquí no importaba.
No. Yo lo que dije es que, ok, que también, que estaba bien que se preocuparan por el fenómeno que estaba pasando con George Floyd, que estaba muy bien, pero que no perdieran atención de que nosotros los cubanos teníamos un problema que resolver.
Yeah, he's saying that,
era tan importante.
Not minimizing or anything, was going on here, but that, to also see for the Cuban people in Cuba that the big problem that they have, in Cuba, and that he says it because he feels, as many Cubans feel, that a lot of people have not listened or have paid attention to what's happening in Cuba. Le estoy diciendo, Raudel, que lo dices, la aclaración que hiciste de que que no es que estabas minimizando en nada lo que estaba pasando aquí, pero que le dijera que las personas se dieran cuenta, el cubano, en las dos partes, que la vida de los cubanos y lo que está pasando en Cuba.
Que nosotros teníamos, que lo que había pasado con George Floyd era muy fuerte, muy duro, pero que nosotros estamos pasando por una situación, los cubanos, en muchos años, muy fuerte, muy duro. Y que también, como estábamos asumiendo la experiencia de Floyd, teníamos que asumir la experiencia de Cuba.
Yeah, that even though we were, seeing what was going on with that of George Floyd, but we also had to see, that we've had this experience of communism for 64 years, that, for Cubans over there to also pay attention to, hey, we got to get, rid of this problem.
Mike, ¿estás entendiendo la intención de lo que yo estaba tratando de decir?
No, claro. Yo entiendo. Yo entiendo todo lo que está diciendo.
O sea, no es que yo estaba minimizando.
No, yo sé. No estaba minimizando. Es como tú buscaste como también inspiration. He's found inspiration towards that to talk about the awareness that happens. Yeah, yo entiendo. I got you. Y también,
no, it's good to clarify because that sometimes.
No, lo que quiero que tu audiencia entienda por qué yo lo quise decir.
Right. Yeah, he wants to make sure that Michael's audience, understands why he did that record that is called Cuban Lives Matter, because, of the importance also of the Cuban lives. Y yo lo dije, Raudel, también, de que también es porque, que la importancia de que las vidas cubanas de todas las razas y todo, por tantos años han estado pasando por todo este problema, que es lo que tú quisiste decir, y que el mundo entero, ahora digo yo esto, ¿no? Si puedo decirlo, que el mundo entero hay veces ha estado sordo, no ha prestado mucha atención de lo que ha estado pasando en Cuba, ¿no? Es en sí también, tú quieres decir.
Sí,
¿verdad?
un poco de todo eso, ¿eh?
Yeah, he says a
Yeah,
little bit
so
of that too. That yes, the world has been a little bit deaf blind, to
yeah,
what's really happening in Cuba, and that hey, it's very important to pay attention to that's happening there, please, that kind of thing. But he at no moment he wanted to minimize what was going on here with George Floyd or any kind of thing.
yeah. So I'll repeat it one more time for my audience. It's nothing to minimize it. As a matter of fact, it was more inspirational to talk about what's going on within our community, just for the record. So
Yes.
that's that with that department. And I also want to let them know this was like before Patria Vida. This joint that came out was way before Patria Vida. So I could probably say it just kind of like grew the seeds of the frustration that was going on in the country by different artists. Is it fair to say that? Like it was just like
Dice él que esa canción la hiciste y eso antes que Patria y Vida salió, que entonces
Mucho tiempo antes.
sí, que decía
yeah.
la frustración de lo que estaba pasando en Cuba.
Sí,
Yes,
mucho tiempo
Yes.
antes de Patria y Vida.
he did.
Yeah, so
He said, I did that much before Patria y Vida, which is a song that now became popular in
yeah, it became the
2021
slogan.
July.
Yeah, has he thought about making these shirts and make a profit out of that? Because that could be a good idea. Because I've seen a couple of those when I was in Washington. I've seen a couple of Cuban Lives Matter T-shirts.
Oh yeah, making what? Any shorts? You're saying like a short
T-shirts. I mean T-shirts. Like I
Dice
saw
que sí,
T-shirts.
yeah. Oh, okay. Que si has pensado en hacer alguna tipo de camiseta, de camisa o algo con Cuban Lives Matter. Dice que
Sí,
en
aquí las
Washington.
hicieron. Aquí en en varias de las protestas que se han hecho aquí, se han hecho camisetas con ese logo.
Dice
Sí,
que in
porque
some of the
yo vi
protests here, they've done that with that
Y
logo.
carteles y los carros los pegan, Cuban Lives Matter.
yo vi mucho de eso cuando fui para Washington para la protesta. Yo vi mucho de eso. Yeah, so very, very, very,
Mike
very.
Mira
saw a
esto
lot
que
of those
interesante.
things.
Escucha esto que interesante y me voy con esto. Mike, 3 de las frases que han acompañado las protestas. 3 de las frases que han acompañado las protestas. Tanto en Cuba como aquí. Tanto en Cuba como en el exilio. 3 de las frases más importantes que han acompañado esas protestas han salido de artistas cubanos, negros y del movimiento urbano. Patria y Vida, Díaz-Canel Singao y Cuban Lives Matter.
He's saying that let me tell you that some of in the protests in Cuba, especially in that July 11th of 21, where from coast to coast in Cuba, the Cuban people came out and protest the regime. He says that a lot of the slogans and the words that some of the people would sing were one of them is Black Lives, la vida cubana se importa, Cuban Lives Matter, which is one of the things that he said. Should I say the second
you can
one?
you can say it. We could curse you. We could curse you.
Mike, ¿cómo se dice Díaz-Canel Singao? ¿Cómo tú
I know. Yeah, it's like
Díaz-Canel Singao. Fuck
Pero
this.
en inglés.
Yeah, it's like
fuck Díaz-Canel. Yes, we do it. Fuck
that's what it is.
Fuck Díaz-Canel.
¿Y cuál es la tercera, Raudel?
Patria
y Vida.
And Patria y Vida, which is that song, that slogan, Patria y Vida.
Yes. That's what a way to describe this. So I want to wrap it up. So the last question I want to ask them, the music. Do we have any singles we should look out for? An album? I saw a single that I want to talk about, but we're not going to touch that single right now. If he wants to talk about it, we're going to leave that one alone. It's a single that I saw.
Dice él que si tienes alguna música que ahora vas a sacar o has sacado, dice que
Sí, voy a estrenar, Mike, en unos días, un tema dedicado a todos las cubanas y los cubanos que han perdido la vida tratando de salir en balsa o cualquier cosa de Cuba por la frontera o algo. A todos los que han perdido la vida. En esa experiencia, le hice una canción que se va a estrenar pronto.
He says that in the next days or so, in the next weeks or so, he's going to come out with a song that he's done dedicated to the people of Cuba, and to all the people that have lost their lives in Cuba, and it's going to come out soon. Todas las personas que han perdido su vida en Cuba y tratando de salir de Cuba, ¿no?
Sí, los balseros, la gente que ha
Yeah.
salido por la frontera y todo eso.
He says people that have left in rafts, and have lost their lives, the millions of people that have lost their lives at sea, and now by the border, the southern border, those too, many lives have been lost of Cubans.
Okay. If and when it get, can I get the single so I could play on the radio station?
Dice que si le puedes dar un single para él ponerlo en la
canción cuando
estación
sale,
de
para yo
radio,
poner la estación mía.
Cuando salga, claro, yo te la mando. Yo te la mando.
Gracias,
Send
muchas
it to
gracias.
him.
Okay, so I mean, what more can you ask for, kids? I mean, this is what I do here. I bring awareness to my people, and not to dismiss anybody. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, Democrat, Republican, gay, straight, Chinese. We're all going to a situation here. We're bringing awareness, and I'm doing my part to bring awareness to the community, to Massachusetts, and to whoever's listening out here. We've been living under a regime for the last 60 plus years. And, as you can hear, like the world, the people of Cuba is getting really tired of it. And we're speaking up and we're doing anything and everything to fight for the cause of freedom. This has been the Tape Deck in collaboration with the Ruckus. No, let me say it again. This is the Ruckus podcast in collaboration with 102.9 Tape Deck. Otra vez le quiero dar las gracias a Raudel. Muchas gracias. Gracias por todo. Y gracias por la música. Gracias por todo lo que está haciendo para la comunidad. Nosotros estamos escuchando, y cualquier cosa necesita para música, ya dame un email y te lo pongo allá.
Gracias.
Marlene, darling, sweetie, thank you.
Oh.
100, thank you. Shout outs. Thank you for making this happen.
Yes, thank you. Anytime. Raudel is my family, so.
Yeah.
That he was my student.
You told me that. You told me that. Yes. So.
Le dije que gracias, le digo que no, que por hacer esto posible, porque como yo lo contacté, y le digo que sí, que gracias, que de todas formas, que Raudel tú eres como una familia, y que si él sabía que era fuiste mi estudiante. He was my English class.
Sí.
Yeah. So next time, hopefully I could go to Florida next month and hang out with you guys, and just kick it and hang out.
Definitely.
So hopefully if Raudel's not too busy, he could put me right in his schedule. We could chop it up for a while.
Dice que si cuando él venga para acá, para Miami pronto, que para juntarse con nosotros,
sí,
a ver si Raudel no está tan ocupado.
Y nos vemos, me avisa y nos vemos.
All right. Okay, guys, this has been the Ruckus Podcast. You know what it is. I'll catch you next time, and it will be a free Cuba. Just remember, Cuban lives matter. Claro, ya se durmió, se rindió, ya se forget it, ya no está para eso, pero hi. Okay. Y ya yo sé, cuando pongo este episodio, se lo va a mandar a todas sus amigas. So, so just remember 3 things, y'all. Cuban lives matter, Pativia, and Diez Canet Cigal. That was freaking Afro-Cuban that did that shit, goddammit.
Thank you.
All right, man. Thank y'all, man. Catch y'all next time. Peace.
Thank you.
Gracias.
It was great.